Last week, we had SharonPrete on the podcast and discussed tribal thinking versus integrative thinking, trauma in the post COVID world, meaningful work, and the process on finding the right employees for the right job. This week, we are finishing the conversation with the definition of success, why kids are living at home longer, Sharon's business, The Coaching Collective, and much more. I would like to thank our sponsors, Native Path Supplements, Lombardi Chiropractic, Home Sweet Home Cleaning, and Thin Line Martial Arts. If you are enjoying this content, I ask that you support these companies in the description and take advantage of the enticing discount they're providing our listeners by using our code COMO15. That's COMO 15. I thank each and every one of you for being on this journey with us. Now, please enjoy the show. Let's talk about the youth right now. And I'm going to say under the age of 30. There's no secret that, yes, there's this subsection of them that are very motivated and they're killing it and they're doing a lot of great things for sure. But then there's a lot that are lacking a drive. Okay. And I heard Jordan Peterson come up with this, I'll call it a triplet of the reason why these youth at ages 25, 30, 32 are still living in their parents' basement. And he gave 3 reasons. And I just want to see what you think of this.
Sure.
Marijuana consumption or overindulging in marijuana, porn and porn addiction, and video games. So he said marijuana, porn, and video games. When you put those 3 together, or a few of those together, it creates a natural lack of drive to want to get out of your parents' basement and go do something. What is your opinion on that?
Oh man. I mean, he's not wrong. That's a triple threat right there. Like, why would you leave your parents' basement if you have marijuana, porn, and video games? Like, what is there to go out and do? What could be better than that for a young person, right? And so it's no, he's definitely not wrong. And I'm joking about it, but it's very serious. There's so much going on. I don't think those are the only 3 things, and I'm sure he probably doesn't think those are the only 3. He's probably thinking those are the big 3 that you can put out loud that everyone would see and go, oh yeah, that all makes sense. I do think there's other things. Is like every generation there's always a pendulum. So because we live in still that big picture black and white world, if this happens over in this generation, being a kid, when you're a kid, you're like, I'm not going to be like my parents. I'm not going to do that. And then you swing and you end up over here. And then the next generation comes along and they're like, I'm not going to be like my parents. And so the pendulum swings and now it's over here. And, the generations before that were fairly high drive, right? And so all these kids watched their parents kill themselves, going to work, trying to get everything. They've also seen the cost of living go up. They've also seen everything you said in that first list, right? Of like there's a divide of working poor. And so the pendulum has swung over here and they're like, why would I, like, you don't look happy. Like, why would I want to go? I've had this conversation with my kids. They're like, I see adults, they don't look fulfilled. They don't look happy. Why would I go bust my ass and do that? And then like, what, to be like you guys? Just all materialistic. They've also been, I'm using the word indoctrinated, not like a cult, but they have been taught and indoctrinated their growing lives that we've got a massive environmental problem going on, right? And so if work means money and money means consumerism, I don't want to contribute to that. Like, I don't need that. I don't need all of those things that the baby boomer generation was the first real big consumerist generation, and all of those things meant success. Things don't mean success to this group of kids anymore in the way that they did. They have guilt and shame, and because of the way the environmental messaging has been delivered, right? So they have this deep-seated shame of like, I don't want to do that because if I do that, I mean, they still all have these, right? So it's selective. It's very selective. And that's understandable too, right? It doesn't make it, I'm not making anything right or wrong here. Again, I'm going integral thinking, which is you can understand how in this circumstance that could be a thing. Um, yeah. And so the no trust thing and the different disinformation and the social media, like you talked about, is that you have social media that's showing this perfect world, which seems so far from attainable for most of these kids. And because they think that's true, that that lifestyle is true, particularly the millennials, more so than the Gen Zs. The Gen Zs really realize, like, well, that's bullshit. Like that's actually not happening. But you know, they have this like, why would I trust you to work that hard? You can't promise me anything. And I'm going to tie it back to the rate of speed of information right now. So it's like you said, if I went to university and I got a good job, I'd be fine. Well, I went to university, I got a degree, it was obsolete in 13 months because the rate of information doubles every 13 months. So why would I go and bust my ass at university for 4 years to get a low paying job where, you know, and you want me to do what you did because that was your definition of success. And I'm telling you what, like Gen Z is changing the model of the definition of success. And those of us that came before were like, oh my God, they're failing. They're failing to thrive. Like that's not okay. There's also a biological component, which is humans tend to stay with their parents for 1/3 of their life. That was always the average. So when it was, 75 lifespan, 25 you're out the door, you're done university and bye-bye. When 45 was lifespan, like at 50, like or 15, like off you go, get married, have kids. And now we're hitting the 90s and that sort of thing. Of course, that's like moving back down in a negative direction, but kids are staying more to that 25 to 30, and the cost of living on top of it all, to go out and do that. And because they look at social media and everyone's life looks perfect, they don't have the vested interest in going and slumming it in a bungalow that 20 of you rent and all sleep on mattresses on the floor. Like that's not their world. That was normal for my generation. In their world, that's disgusting. Like, why would I go and do that? So yeah.
So then what you're describing is almost like a somewhat normal shift. Like, are you not concerned then? Is this what should be happening? Because a lot of everything that you said makes complete sense, Sharon. And I have actually never even thought of it from framing it from that perspective. So that's very cool. So you're not concerned?
Well, I am concerned because it's an unknown, right? And I'm
Mhm.
I'm human, and anytime there's an unknown, you feel a sense of like concern, and because humans thrive in the safety of knowledge, and because there's such a big shift happening right now, and I don't know, it kind of feels like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they're right. Like maybe these kids are right, and maybe they're going to create a different set of systems and a different way of being. And maybe they're right, or maybe this is gonna all come to a head and be a failure, and it's not going to be good. I don't know. So I actually I'm interested. Is how I would frame it. Like I'm not worried. I do feel a sense of concern, which is different from worry. Like I'm not freaking out about it. I'm more interested. I'm like that popcorn meme. Like just give me the popcorn. I just can't wait to see how this plays out.
That's good. Yeah, that's where I sit too. I don't overthink it by any means, but it's a thought and it's interesting. And when Jordan Peterson had said that, and then we were gonna talk, like I was like, I'm really interested to see what Sharon thinks about that. That's very cool. Let's dive into a second component here. So we've really sort of stayed with this one topic for a little while, and it's been great. So let's get more solution oriented a little bit here. So, how can people work towards organizing their life and creating an exciting vision for the future? I want to just lay out some like tangible steps because we have a lot of listeners that are going to want to walk away with some areas that maybe they can improve on. You've mentioned in your bio the 8 pillars of wellness. I don't know if that has stuff you want to mention, but how can they start to, like you had said earlier in the conversation, wake up Monday morning and work towards being excited?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a big question. How to organize your life in 5 simple steps by Sharon Prete. Um, yeah, when the world is overwhelming, the information is overwhelming. You can scroll on Instagram and you can find like 10 things you should do every morning before 7 a.m. to make your life better, and all of that kind of stuff. And you scroll through enough of that stuff and you read enough of that stuff, and you don't apply any of it, then you actually just end up feeling crappy because you're like, everyone's telling me what I should do. And so then it comes back to like my values, where you really start to align yourself with your values. And one of the things I like to do the most, that's the most simple, is just to start to observe myself. So I'm always learning and growing. My life is always changing, right? Like nothing, like sadly, you don't get to a spot and get to arrive and go, ah, like life is a journey, and it's always throwing stuff at you, good and bad. And you're always like, there's a quote, I can't remember who said it. Maybe you know, the privilege of a lifetime is getting to know oneself. Can't remember who said that, but and I sit with that, and I was like, yeah, it really is. And how much do I know myself? How much stuff was downloaded onto me from my parents and what their views were? Because their generation was looking at our generation, being like, "Oh no, this is a disaster. You shouldn't be doing that," and we thought we were fine, right? And but I think, yeah, just really starting to observe myself. So if I wake up in the morning and I feel dread, why? Like just the real simple questions, like go back to toddler style questions. Why? Why is this happening? Why do I feel bad? And if I wake up one morning and I'm feeling amazing, I'm like, why do I feel amazing about this? What is it? Like I love chatting about behavior and that sort of thing. So you can imagine that I've been pumped all week. I've been excited all week. I've been engaged. I'm like, oh, I don't know what questions he's going to ask me, and I'm thinking about it. That's a sign of true engagement, where I think about something and I'm excited. So why is that? Well, because it's the behavior thing. I love chatting about those things, and I love sharing stuff with people that hopefully they can take away and use or reframe a perspective that helps them in their lives. So really just starting with the why. Or if I'm craving sugar, why am I craving sugar today? What happened today that made me want that? And so, because you can apply all kinds of remedies onto yourself, but if you don't know why it's happening in the first place, and people will say like, well, I don't have time to go to a psychologist. You don't need the psychologist to ask you the question why and to be able to answer it, right? So to me, that's like a really rudimentary way of starting to get alignment with yourself. And so you ask enough whys, and you might get down the rabbit hole of, okay, I really hate my job, right? Like I really hate it. And now you find yourself alone in an existential crisis of, oh my God. But then you can also start conceptualizing, well, what kind of work would I love? What would be meaningful work to me? Are there things in my job that I love, or am I making a blanket statement that I hate it? Is it, do I love my job and just not like the company? Right. And so really just starting to ask yourself like 1,001 questions, with a sense of curiosity, not self-judgment. Like, why do I hate my job? What's wrong with me? Like lose the judge, lose the inner critic, right? And just really approach yourself with compassion and curiosity.
Yeah, and asking that question why, that's very cool. I've always thought of that from like a health and fitness perspective, like what you just said with sugar.
Yeah.
Why am I craving sugar? Or why am I craving alcohol on a Friday night? Like, or whatever it may be. But yeah, from an occupational perspective, I think that's cool too.
Yeah.
That's a really neat. And giving yourself the permission to sit in the observer's seat.
Yeah.
I think that's cool too. Have you seen, and this is the same topic, have you seen like with entrepreneurs? I know you work with and have worked with a lot of business owners, big and small, that the day in and day out routine can be somewhat dreadful if there isn't a big project being worked on. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Like for me, I'm almost giving you like, I don't dread I love what I do. I love co-movement. Like all of this is great. But when I'm really on high is when I have a big project going, and it's still within the scope of the business. But when I find a long stretch of the normal, we won't even call it mundane, right? It's just the normal. And there's no like,
Yeah, the day.
I'm not launching a new program, or I'm not doing some big project over at my farm, or this or that. Like it's almost like it's not a depression, but it's like you're just not as excited. And so for me, I'm labeling myself as more of like I love project based stuff. Um, and I am a finisher. Like what I start, I finish, and so it's not like I'm avoiding the mundane to get to the end. But does that make any sense? Like, do you see that with my kind of personality, self-employment, entrepreneurship, where it needs bigger things on the table to really get pumped up?
Oh gosh, yeah, I see it. I see it all the time. I see it all the time.
Okay.
I think it's one of the beauties of humanity, though, is that there are people like you. Right, I'm going to use you as the avatar now. There's people like you who love that big project, and there are people who absolutely love and thrive in that day in day out mundane, and then there's people who thrive in both. Right, and so the world needs all those people. Right, like you need the people that are pushing projects forward, and you need the people that do the day in and day out. I have some people that I work with that do the day in and day out, and my God, like they're so good at it. They just like got it done. Like they love it. And they thrive in it. And then I work with people who are in the big project world. And there's, to me, there's no red flags about that. It's more the red flags of when you start and you don't finish. You start and you don't finish. Like,
Sure.
are you looking for something? If you have a project and you see it from start to finish, you are a visionary and you have created it. And you're a visionary and a creator. Some people will get a ball rolling because they're strictly visionaries and they will get the ball rolling, but they never purport to be a finisher. Do you know what I mean? It's the red flags occur when it's like, oh, I started this project, but then I couldn't finish it. I started this project, but then I couldn't finish it. Maybe that person's just a visionary and they were meant to actually bring other people in. Maybe that person is trying to bring projects in to get a certain high because it's like, if I have all this to think about, I don't have to think about that. And so it's like the sugar, it's like the alcohol. It's like, okay, so then why? What do you get out of starting that project? What do you get out of that sugar? The other question I like to ask too is like if there's sugar or alcohol or projects or like addiction to work and that kind of thing is what pain are you avoiding? That's a hard question to ask because nobody wants to feel pain, right? Like human beings are wired. This like we're wired for the black and white to a certain degree, like pleasure, not pain. Like what human being is like I love the pain. Now, okay, there's some that do, but as a general rule, there's like you're always going after the pleasure. That's why addiction's a thing, because the pleasure actually numbs the pain too. So it's a double whammy. And so if you can be brave enough and compassionate enough with yourself to ask that question, okay, why did I want wine after work today? Right? Like what happened today that I wanted wine? Well, you know what? My boss came at me this way. Okay, so your boss came at you that way. What did you tell yourself after that? What did you make that mean? What did you feel after that? Well, I felt shame. I felt like I wasn't good enough. And I don't want to feel like I'm not good enough. So I poured wine on it so that I could forget about that. That's a real tipping point right there. Like if you can ask yourself those questions and get to that point where you're like, I didn't want to feel not good enough. I wanted to numb that out. It's, when you finally get in touch with your pain, you actually have the opportunity to ask the question, are you good enough? Yeah, you are. Was that boss maybe having a bad day? Did maybe that boss take some shit out on you because he wasn't feeling good enough, right? And so if you're willing to follow the rabbit hole of questions down to the root, and the root's scary for some people, and some people can't do that on their own, and some people really do need to go and get professional help and a great therapist and that sort of thing to allow them to feel safe to get there. But if you can feel safe getting there yourself, you can ask those questions and align things quite nicely.
And that's a great point. Not being ashamed of like reaching out and looking for help. Like you and I have had many conversations in the last 15 years, professionally, personally, ups and downs, different things, taking classes, seminars, books, like, there's a lot of good stuff to help you sort of analyze and ask those bigger questions. Cause I do feel like the average person asking that series of whys will hit a point where they just don't want to go anymore. But
100%.
someone like you steps in and you're going to push that, right? Because that's what we need to draw out of them. And so, yeah, just giving people permission to let that guard down, and to ask more questions, maybe with some assistance. I think that's great.
Yeah, I've seen it in real time. I've been teaching a class before about behavior, and I saw this one guy. He was a special ops army, and I just saw him kind of like he was looking like he was like freaking out, a little bit freaking out, and eyes were getting buggy. Like he was showing kind of like all the signs of like eyes are darting around, like he's having a PTSD moment, and he was, and so and it was because we were asking questions about getting to know yourself and that sort of thing. So it comes with the caution of you might hit that point where you don't want to, but be okay to ask for help. He didn't ask for help in that moment, but I happened to be right there, and I went and I asked him. I was like, "What's going on for you right now?" Like I actually broke the class to go take a break, and I pulled him aside, and he's like, "I'm starting to remember things I haven't remembered in a long time." And it actually wasn't because of the class. It was because of someone else in the class that reminded him of an event that he had experienced in the military. And so, but I think because he was in the safe space of like, what the fuck's going on with me right now? What's going on? He couldn't shove it down, which had been his tool. And bless him, right? Like we all do the best we can with what we have, and short of being given any tools to deal with things, shoving it down is really effective. Like human beings, that exists for us to package things up and tuck it away. It's a survival mechanism, and it works brilliantly. Anyway, so it was great because he ended up, we chatted about him, and I got him hooked up with a really great trauma therapist. And on he went and worked through his stuff, and not easy, not easy. So you can say, oh, and everything like he lived happily ever after and that kind of thing. He had to do some serious work to work through some of those things he had experienced. It was work, and it was hard work, and he did.
Yeah, the one of the many benefits for getting outside counsel. I'm an advocate for that for sure. Back pain, headaches, and discomfort plague the majority of humans walking around each day. Chiropractic care can be the solution to feeling your best. I know for me personally, it has had a huge impact on how I feel day to day. The problem is that many people fear going to the chiropractor and getting their first adjustment. The team at Lombardi Chiropractic are the best of the best, a team that I've worked with for over 12 years. Visit their website at lombardichiropractic.com, and when you call, let them know you are a listener of the Co-Movement Gym podcast. The majority of supplements on the market are junk and a waste of money. Lack of regulation allows these companies to sell cardboard and a pill, and they get away with it. It's important to purchase your supplements from a company you trust, which for us at Co-Movement is Native Path Supplements. Shop their products at nativepath.com and use code COMO15 for a nice discount at checkout. That's COMO 15. Law enforcement officers have one tough job. While some calls may be routine, many are not, oftentimes putting officers in unpredictable situations. Thin Line Martial Arts is an apparel company that promotes defensive tactics training for officers so that they can be equipped to safely handle a hand-to-hand combat situation. Purchasing apparel from Thin Line Martial Arts promotes this message and allows more officers to attend training. Go to thinlinemartialarts.com and use code COMO15, that's COMO 15, to receive a 15% discount on us. Did you know a clean house reduces anxiety, increases your productivity, improves sleep, and decreases stress? Yes, all of those health benefits just from having a clean house. The problem is that no one finds cleaning fun, except for the great folks at Home Sweet Home Cleaning. Mention the Co-Movement Gym podcast and receive 20% off deep cleans for all clients who sign on using their reoccurring services and start enjoying a clean house today. Let's talk about, Sharon, your company and project, the Coaching Collective. What is it? What do you do? Let the listeners know what's going on with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So I have an Instagram page, and you had asked me for a link, and I sent the link and I was like, I barely ever post. It started off as
I
I'm
saw
going
that.
to, and it's going to be great. And I was like, I post once in a while when I have something with a client that is like, I was like, there's other people that need to know this. I know this. And so then I make a post. And mostly it's just a group of coaches. Sometimes we get together and have conversations like this with multiple coaches. More than anything, it ends up being mentorship. So, I've lived the world of behavior and fitness and coaching for a good long while now. And there's a lot of great, great coaches out there and athletes as well, who are like, I want to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, I know I'm unconscious to it. It exists there. I have a pattern. Help me understand it. So then we'll do some mentorship sessions together, and they'll tell me what's going on, and I'll usually get to the root of something. A lot of the times, most of the times with behavior patterns, there's not some really awful, sinister thing. It's a pattern of thinking or a pattern of behavior that can be switched quite easily with some awareness. Other times you get down to some root stuff, and then when things go to a root that with a client they need to get further assessment with mental health care and that sort of thing, then they do that. So that's what it is. It's basic mentorship at this point, with a once in a while insight that shows up on Instagram.
No, that's great. Yeah, I will put that page up there. But it is funny because I follow it. But you're right, the content, you don't have a lot on there, but that's not a bad thing. I'm sure you have more business than you can handle, so that's fine. That's cool. I will post that. So I'm curious, Sharon. Personal question: what kind of 2024 goals do you have? 1, 2, 3, maybe no goals, maybe you don't know yet. Like, are you envisioning anything that you're sort of pushing for 2024 or no?
Yeah, I am. For me, where I'm at in my career and my life right this second is just a real impact on leadership. And so moving into an executive level and that sort of leadership perspective. I work with executives all the time, and so I'm at that point where I'm there. It's executive time for this gal, and so more than that though, even is helping other women propel into that world. So again, to the mentorship thing with the coaching collective, it's I do that with coaches and whatnot, but I also do it with other people who are working in business and part of a number of women's groups. It's not that I have anything against men. I love them. I've got 3 boys who I adore and that sort of thing. It's just I still see, I'm not even going to call it remnants of misogyny in the workplace. I see blatant misogyny in the workplace. And one of my goals is to, in my small circle and with everyone I touch, actually to help dissipate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great, Sharon. So yeah, you're going to be looking at like going after bigger accounts, maybe working with higher level administrators, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That is so cool. Okay, so let's see here. There's a quote I wanted to end with and see what you think about this. I don't even know who it was. I just haven't forgotten the quote itself. It says, instead of trying to fix the world, fix your community first. What does that mean to you, and what's a takeaway from that?
Oh, baby, I love that quote. And I live by that. So part of the misogyny thing, for example, it's that you segued that perfectly. It's like you read my mind. So when I look at misogyny in the world, and so much of it is unconscious, right? So much of it is male culture and how males have been brought up as their place in the world, especially over the last 100 years. And I look at where women have got to in the last 100 years. Women have had to work extremely hard to fit into the male world. And what has resulted from that is that you have women that are very adept with their masculine and very adept with their feminine, really balanced people. And males haven't had to come to the same level of equality as females. You'll see it in social media now where you're like, I'm not helping with the housework. It's not helping. I'm doing housework, right? Like the younger generation is actually starting to change that narrative, which I really, really applaud. And so when I think about that, I was like, okay, I can't fix the world's misogyny as one person alone. I know that. But I have 3 boys that live in my house, and they have a lot of friends that come through my house. And they have a lot of friends that listen to rap music. And in that rap music, oftentimes women are referred to, am I allowed to swear? I think I swore once already, but
Yeah.
they call women bitches, and they refer to them as bitches. And I thought, I'm going to start there. No more of that. I don't mind, like, you listen to your music and all of that, but in my house, you don't get to use that word in reference to women. And so, and I stole it from Maya Angelou, actually, who was having a dinner party at her house, and someone made a racial slur, and she said, no, get out, out. Like, she just drew the line in the sand. And so I was like, I'm gonna channel my inner Maya Angelou, and like, you guys do kids, because I would hear how they would talk about girls. Yeah, this bitch, she came up to me at a party and blah blah blah. And I was like, mm. And these are good kids. Like, these aren't shitty kids, but these are kids that have been taught through media that that's how you talk about ladies. And I said to them, you can call them girls or women, but I don't ever hear that word in my house again. Anyways, and then someone used it. I was like, what did I tell you? Like, strike 2. And then someone used it again, and I was like, everyone out, made all the boys leave out of my house, and don't you dare come back here until. Anyways, it took 2 days, and this one friend, he goes on vacation with us. He's had a hard lot in life, and so we've taken him in like family on vacations with us, and he's lived here a couple times when he's had some rough times at home and that sort of thing. He came back a couple days later, and he's like, I don't want to lose my relationship with you. I love you. I'm so sorry. In my house, we say that. Like, even my sisters and my mom call girls bitches. And I was like, I understand. And there's no shame. This isn't about shame. I love you too. You are welcome here anytime. And you're simply not allowed to use that language in this house, because you're better than that. You're better than that. Women are better than that. So it stops here. But more importantly, not only are you going to change you, but if you hear one of your friends call a girl or a woman something negative, you're going to call it out, because I can't do it all alone. So I started to employ these boys, and I sat them all down, told them the same thing, that they have to call each other out, because men have to start expecting better of men. And so fast forward, a couple days later, I heard one of them. I was like, it's habitual. Like, you guys are so used to saying it, you're just going to say it. A couple days later, sure enough, one of them was like, bitch, and they're like, oops. And all the guys were like, don't say that. So they started to self-correct, right? As a collective, as a group, they started to self-correct themselves. Fast forward a month later, this kid comes back to me. He's like, I have to tell you what happened at a party last night. And I was like, okay, what happened? He's like, there was this girl, and we were hanging out, and she pulled me off to the side, and she said, do you know what I like about you that's different than all the other boys? And he said, what? And he goes, you don't call girls bitches. She's like, you're so respectful, and you're so nice. And he was like, Sharon, you're right. And I was like, well, I know I was right, but keep doing that. Don't let it happen around you. Like, I'm not going to let it happen around me. Don't let it happen around you. And so I think that's how you make some change, because you can't do it yourself. You have to start it, but then you have to get it around you. And that's my community. So that language in my community doesn't exist anymore.
That's great, Sharon. Wow, that is a powerful way to end the conversation today. That's a good takeaway for listeners. I thank you for your time. I definitely want to have you back on for another conversation here in the future.
Anytime, sir.
Yeah, we will put the links for the coaching collective in the show descriptions. And Sharon, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Josh.
One last message. I ask that you please check out our show sponsors, Lombardi Chiropractic, Home Sweet Home Cleaning, Native Pass Supplements, and Thin Line Martial Arts. Their links are in the description. Not only do these companies produce outstanding products and services, but they're providing an enticing discount to all listeners who use code COMO15. That's COMO15 at checkout or when you give them a call.